Good morning. Welcome to the Meltdown. Hope y'all are having a great day. I got to tell you, this is a show that we're going to talk about a little bit of economics, but I'm going to talk about coins and precious metals. In the Eurozone, unemployment is still increasing again. Part of what's happening, and I've tried to state this a couple of times, is that we are creating bubble markets. We move our economy around based on interest rates, based on monetary policy, based on what the Federal Reserve wants to accomplish. There are so many different factors that we as lay people could never appreciate. I remember when I went to, I guess I was in junior high, I learned how to calculate on an abacus. I mention that because today people don't know what an abacus really is. Everything is, heck, we would get in trouble if we took a calculator into a high school. Today, you can't go to school without one. And most kids can't pull out their cell phone, so they got to follow the rules, and they got to get sophisticated, what we would have called sophisticated back in the 70s. Today, it's just the norm. Brett, what has that got to do with anything? Well, here's what I listen to. I listen to Ford Motor, which has increased a dividend payment, looking to go toe-to-toe with Toyota in Japan. In spite of the fact that Ford only sold 3,500 units, they think they're going to take on Toyota? Really? I think that's kind of humorous. I was checking online, and one of the stories that I saw was that fewer mortgages are deeply underwater. Well, they shouldn't be as deeply underwater. The government came out with another bailout plan. And so people who appeared to be underwater had an opportunity, a tax incentive, government money to bail themselves out so that they could encourage people to stay in their homes. I've got a friend down in Florida who went through a HAMP position, lowered her interest rate, her mortgage payment, but today there's so little equity, and because of the economy, filed a bankruptcy over medical issues, can't walk away from the house. It's $60,000 underwater. Can't live much cheaper than where she is, and going out to warm up her vehicle, that wasn't even an option. It's pretty scary. China's cracking down on Bitcoin. Michael's going to pull those numbers up so we can see where Bitcoin's trading. And
below 900.
Just below 900, and of course it's the Chinese that have propped that market up and run it up to 1,000. I look at things from a perspective of where we're going. Now, I've got a follower who heard on the news that coins are not a good place to be investing money right now. Coins are not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is a very sensitive market where people are literally trying to protect their money. For December, the labor numbers came out. 238,000 jobs were reported to have been created during the month of December. My concern is that as we talk about unemployment getting to the 7% figure, we're having to rely on ADP to provide us payroll numbers. We rely on the Labor Department to give us the state of the labor market. And you and I are standing there trying to interpret what all of that really means. And all I can tell you is that if you ask the 2,500 employees at Macy's that are about to lose their jobs, this is a catastrophe. Because in this economy, the long-term unemployed are written off. It's kind of what happens when you go through a bankruptcy. You write your debt off. When you go through a divorce, you write off the spouse. Well, folks, the implications and the wave in any economy comes quickly. And there may be undercurrent. We certainly know that here in the Houston market. If you go down to Galveston, rip currents are always something to be concerned about. Look, Macy's is going to close 5 stores. That was the lead. 2,500 jobs are going to be lost. However, the rest of the story is that there are going to be 8 stores that open. Now, are the 2,500 workers going to get to be moved? Probably not. But it's from that standpoint that you've got to dig deep. You've got to look at all the due diligence and all the fact and understand what really is going on out there. People are long-term unemployed in this country. And for the Eurozone, in Italy, there's 12.7% unemployment. That's what we know. The numbers really could be closer to 25 or 30%. They've got long-term unemployed, and no, I'm not an expert in Italian economics. I know that the Eurozone is worried. They expect Draghi to enter and do something to help the interest rates. I know that we expect the same things out of our Federal Reserve chairperson, whoever that is. Well, we know that it's Ben Bernanke, but we know he's leaving at the end of the month. And as he's getting ready to split, Janet Yellen's coming in. And so tapering has begun. And the markets, well, they're trading. There's no doubt about that. The spread in the price of silver has been as high as 1976, as low as 1940. The market's down 0.15%. Gold, platinum, and palladium were up a fraction. The Nikkei overnight, it was down by almost 2 percentage points. The dollar's down, currencies are mixed. What do? Is the sky really falling? Look, there are going to be very large interests in precious metals, and they're going to move the market. Some days, if you sell, you're going to lose money, and other days, you're going to make money. This is the hedge. This is part of diversification. That's what most people listen to. Now, as a pundit, somebody who likes rare coins and precious metals, Michael and I are trying to work in our heads, but we're calculating out some figures. There are periodicals and there are coin dealers. There's about 6,000 of us, and we own coins from certified, third-party authenticated and graded pieces that are encapsulated. We call those a slab, to coins that don't warrant going into slabs because they're low enough grade that a dealer can be fair and tell you what the value of the coins are. It doesn't matter what the markup is. Sometimes it does, but because of the advent of the internet, you can shop and look and do due diligence, and you can find what coins are worth. But worth is relative to some of the other characteristics that I try to explain. And while you call it tarnish on a coin, I call it toning. Dealers refer to it as a totally different term, and it means something totally different to us than what it's going to mean to you initially. I've had clients who dip coins in Tarnex to make them look pretty. Well, if you do that, you ruin the value of the coin. If it's got silver, it's going to be worth silver value. If you do it to a gold coin, it's going to be worth the gold value. You can ruin a $500 coin in a matter of a moment. I've dealt with it. I've watched a spouse smack a spouse over it, and it's sad, but it happens. So I don't want you doing anything to your coins. Don't clean them. Protect them, separate them. Don't let them jostle up against each other. If they're wheat pennies and they've been in bags, you don't probably have to worry about it. Look for the better dates. Now, you can come in and you can acquire a red book. You can go to a used bookstore. I had a gentleman in here. He was selling coins that he'd collected over about a 30-year period. And I asked if he had a red book. He said he did. His book was dated 1966. Probably outdated a little bit. But you know what? If the coins were made prior to 1966, the red book would define which coins are the key dates, the stopper coins, the ones that control the sets. Now, obviously, the information as far as the values is no good, but the mintage figures didn't change. The same mintage figures that were printed in the 1960s are the same, quote, numbers that you see today based on the time frame It's been an extra 50 years, but that's not the point. The point is that when you look at a red book, the red book is capable of describing to you which coins are the valuable ones. And it doesn't matter what series of coins you're in. Ultimately, this gets down to being able to read and interpret the information, look at other types of coins that you should own based on your age, based on the way you're building your estate, how you want to pass on the wealth. There's a lot of different factors that go into this. So for me, when someone comes in and talks to me about coins, one of the first things that I obviously take into account is their age. Now, there have been companies that have been targeted because they've, quote, marketed to the elderly. I brought this up yesterday, and I'm going to expound on it, not just in my own case, but in the case of, quote, the market. Shy of a young person who has a tech company. I'm going to pick on Mark Cuban only because Cuban owns the Dallas Mavericks, and we all can relate to it. He's a pretty young man. He's made a lot of money. What is the diversification in his portfolio? I don't know. I don't know how Mark has done what he's done. He bought a professional basketball team, so obviously he made a lot of money. But the average person who's buying rare coins or precious metals is looking at what their family members did a generation or two or three ago. And I look at the Eric Newman collection. Experts estimated that the collection would bring $15 million. They missed the mark by nearly 50% of the estimate. It brought $23 million. The man spent $7,500, and he started buying in the 1930s, so he waited a long time. The estate will wait a long time. Bottom line is he cashed it in, and there were people lined up to buy coins from the Newman sale. And some of the coins that came out of the Newman collection were coins that had belonged to Colonel Green, another noted numismatist. Folks, there's a lot that goes to pedigree. And pedigree matters whether you're buying cars, I mentioned that yesterday, whether you're buying coins, whether you buy art, or any other type of collectible. This is a market, rare coins and precious metals, that has coins that command big premiums. Now, I've been talking about 4 $20 gold pieces. Each of the 4 coins went over $100,000, including the auction fee. I'm pretty pleased with the number, the guesstimate that I thought I had. There was 1 or 2 that were a little bit on the short side, but one coin, the 1879 I remember when I sold one for about $35,000. It brought $110,000. The 1887 I thought was a little bit light at $160,000, but you know what? These 4 coins don't take up much space, and somebody had to have spent in excess of $500,000 to own all 4. I don't know who bought them. It's not my point. My point is that these 4 coins, which drug through a week and a half when I started talking about them, hit the number. Now, if these were dealers that owned these coins, the end user is going to pay more money for them. That's the demand and, quote, the supply of certain pieces. Now, again, I don't know who bought the 4 coins. It's not my point. What is my point is that of the thousands and thousands of coins out there, if you wanted to spend $1 billion, if that was something you had access to, at coins that are at $4,500 average, I could put together over 222,000 coins that would, you could put probably 2 or 3 times that inside of a warehouse that's 10 by 25. My point in all of this is that wealth seeks to protect itself. Some people find the opportunity in real estate, or they find it in cars or art. There's so many different ways to accumulate it. I want to own sets of coins. Depends what I've got to work with, what my clients are working with. We talk about goals and objectives. I do not give financial advice. That is not what my purpose is. My purpose is to fulfill a desire that my clients bring, which is to protect themselves against governments, global economics, geopolitical issues, Bridgegate, as they call it now, because of the debacle Christie caused because somebody got involved in another party in the election, and what a nightmare. But the people on the bridge are the ones that suffered, the kids and the EMS employees and the lost work and the traffic jam. What this is about my pie is this big, and I want to protect a chunk of the pie. That's what it boils down to. Coins that are third-party authenticated and graded. Currency that's third-party authenticated and graded. Unique notes, unique coins. I can tell you that Louis Eliasberg completed the only known complete set of U.S. coins as of 1950. One example from every single mint that produced a coin, pioneer material. It didn't matter. He owned one of everything. It will never, ever happen again because there were unique coins in the Eliasberg sale, and when it was broken up, those coins will never cross paths again. Oh, one or two of those areas might, but ultimately, a complete collection of everything? Not. Egos get involved in this, and people want to own finest knowns. I've got clients that I've talked to down in South Florida that have bought older rare coins, and ultimately those coins ended up in hands that might be passed on to heirs. But because older coins are, quote, not perfect, I've got a lot of people who want to own perfect coins. They want the brand new stuff that grades in 70 condition, proof or mint state. Well, today the U.S. Mint knows what it's doing. It's different than when they produced coins 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago. They dropped them in bags. Coins were used as commerce. Today, certain sets, mint sets, proof sets, those coins are pretty much perfect, but you can't get a perfect grade. And you know that if you do, the value of the coin is going to skyrocket. Well, it's okay. I can talk to people about a 1991 half-ounce gold eagle. 90% of the coins were guesstimated to be used in jewelry and gift giving. In 1986, when the series was created, the $25 gold eagle, half an ounce of gold, they minted 587, and I think what my number is. I haven't used it in a while. Almost 600,000 coins. Gold was $540 an ounce. Well, gold was coming down in 1991. Gold hit $327. People weren't buying gold. The U.S. Mint only produced 24,100 coins. And 2 years later, it was estimated that 90% of them were used in jewelry and gift giving. That means that the survival of only maybe 2,500 gem coins exists. If you can get a Mint State 69 specimen, odds are you're going to spend somewhere above $3,500 to own one. Now, that does not mean that every one of them is worth that kind of money. If it's been used in a piece of jewelry, it's not going to happen. If it's been damaged, it's not going to happen. You're going to be trading for gold spot if it's been scratched or defaced. But a Mint State 69 coin, big money. Mint State 70, a perfect coin, you could easily spend $7,000 to $10,000 on a half an ounce of new gold. I talk about the 1995 W silver dollar. A nice Mint State Proof 69 coin is going to probably trade for between, I'll say $10,000, $15,000. A 70, if it's PCGS graded, one sold last year for $86,000 and change. If it wasn't bought by the end user probably paid in excess of $100,000. That's a coin that was made in 1995, folks. So knowing what to buy, when to pay the premium, why you pay the premium, who graded it, does it have the plus, the star, the CAC, is it green or gold? Those are all areas of a market you've got to talk to people about. And you better talk to people who know what they're talking about, because if all you do is look online and you go through a few websites or you call somebody who's trying to capture your business, people talk about folks all the time. There's a reason why gold dealers are still in business and other dealers are out of business. Ultimately, I've seen gold buyers that popped up, took advantage of the fad, and they're gone already. And they didn't make enough money. They met some people, they know some things, they can help some people out, but did they follow the rules? Here's one I can tell you. My staff is, the edict from the state of Texas says a precious metals dealer will send his invoices to the chief of police. When we called our local municipality to send over our invoices, they didn't know what to do with them, which basically meant that for the past year or so, nobody did it. So the girls were like, what do we do, Brett? And I said, that's easy. Box it up, ship it UPS, get a signature, and let them figure it out, because the state of Texas dictated that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we did. What did they do with the box? I have no idea. It's not my job. What was my job was to follow that rule. And so what I'm going to tell you is that if you're trying to figure out how to move money, you're putting in an annuity. Okay, fine. Did you put all your money in there? Are you happy at 0.25 or 0.6, or are you getting 5 or 6% on your money? And if you are, do you have to be disabled to capture it? And if you are, is it going to be tax-free? There's so many different variables that I talk about diversification, and rare coins and precious metals are part of the diversification. Folks, you don't just one day wake up and decide this is something you ought to do, but you gather information and you talk and you look at numbers and you understand certain things. Whether you understand them or not, I'll talk until you're blue in the face from listening to me. If you've got questions, there's over 500 shows at themeltdown.com. There's other links that you can go look at other information and procure that. You can ask questions. You can email me, Brett, B-R-E-T-T, at thegoldexchange.net. You can call 281-548-2646. It's 281-548-COIN. Hit option 0 so you don't get trapped in the phone system. If we're tied up or we're busy, leave a message. We'll call you back. But this is that time where you look at a market and you say, you know, Brett, I understand what you're saying. I've talked and listened to you talk about the crest cycle. I understand that there's other ways to chart. There's the Elliott wave and the crest cycle. And, you may know somebody who's charted a market. What I'm going to tell you is there are estimates that the top of the market is 17, maybe 18,000. The bottom might be 5,000 in the Dow. And gold could hit 1,000. If there was enough sellers, maybe it goes down to 700, but there will be a bounce. And all of a sudden, the product won't be out there. There will be too many people looking to take delivery. The futures market is leveraged at 50 to 1. For every ounce of physical gold out there, there's 50 people betting on it. And if all 50 decided they wanted it, we don't have enough. All of a sudden, the price of gold could be 5,000 or 10,000 an ounce. I've heard those estimates out there. I don't have a clue what it's going to be worth. I don't have a crystal ball that functions in the prognostication of the marketplace any more than the Federal Reserve seems to be able to control the interest rates. Here we are with the 10-year Treasury. It's been bouncing between 2.95 and 3% yield. And people are making money and losing money. And the Dow is down, and the NASDAQ is down, the S&P is down. And you've got people short in the market and going long in the market. People make money, people lose money every day. That's what I can tell you. So from my standpoint, this is a pretty simple program, folks. You decide what you've got to move around based on your age, your goals, your objectives, your heirs, All of those factors, we sit back and we talk about them. Not because I'm giving you financial advice, but because you've asked me questions and I've got some answers. And then you either pray about it, or you talk to a financial planner, or you talk to a friend and you come up with a game plan, and that's what you do. Anyway, if you've got questions, please email me, Brett, B-R-E-T-T, at thegoldexchange.net. Now, I never get off a podcast without talking about the Myers Center, that's the Downs Clinic, and the Ronald McDonald House at Texas Children's. It is located on the 4th floor. There are 20 rooms. Now, there's a facility outside of Texas Children's. That's 50 rooms. But this is inside the hospital for families that stay bedside most of the night, decide to crash out for a couple hours, maybe one parent on, one parent off. I've been there. I've utilized the facility. Nancy Allen and her staff really are fantastic people. If you can provide a hot meal for 20 to 40, 50 people, call them, please. 832-824-8600. It's 832-824-8600. The Meyer Center is located on Stadium Drive. It's south of the Fannin location. Dr. Ostermeyer and her staff will be more than happy to assist you. If you go to themeltdown.com, you can plug in your information, make a charitable donation. You'll get your receipt. The information is private for me, but the funds will go through to those facilities. I love the doctors, the nurses, the staff, and the volunteers at Texas Children's throughout the medical center, throughout the country, throughout the world. People really do love these kids, and we take our time and we cherish them anyway. Folks, have a good day. I'll be back this afternoon. God bless you. Thank you for listening in. If you've got questions, our phone number, our email contacts are all at themeltdown.com. Go to the links page. You can find other information. The banners are there to make donations. I appreciate you listening in, and we'll be back. We'll talk to you later this afternoon. God bless you all. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.